Hello and welcome to the December edition issue of What's Cooking Rutland. I'm Bethany Yan. I'm a nutritionist at the health department and part of Rutland's Nutrition Coalition that brings you this show each month. And it got cold outside. It feels like winter really came. So I think it really is safe to say healthy holidays or happy holidays. There I am jumping the gun here. Healthy holidays is what we're talking about. But we'll rewind for just a second. And Donna Hunt is joining me, one of my favorite dietitians at, I think I'm going to get this, Diabetes and Endocrinology Center at Rutland Regional. Yay! How many years has it taken me, but we did it. Yay, hooray, hooray.
Good job.
So yeah, healthy holidays. So it's really kind of a fun show to put together for December, to think about the holiday season is now well underway. And so in the midst of our cooking different things, we're going to chat about, what does it mean to have healthy holidays? Where do you make your choices and where do you make your decisions? So that came out really klutzy because it's not an easy answer and it's not like, here are the rules to make it all work. So yeah, right, exactly. So we'll kind of sort of unpack that as we go. And one of the things that I like is when I go to various holiday gatherings, whether they're with colleagues, coworkers, family, friends, is to bring something that at least I know is going to make a healthy contribution to the table and still be insanely festive. So that's the fun thing. Healthy doesn't have to be boring. And so we have really yummy recipes as well as incredibly festive recipes. So hopefully we'll get them all assembled in time so we can just see how festive they are. So we're also not going to use the oven a whole lot because if you're my oven at home, you've got biscotti and baked goods in there. And so we're going to keep the oven free for those kinds of goodies and instead just kind of work outside of being in the oven. So we have a new spin on a salsa recipe that we'll start with. Once Donna's up to her eyeballs and she's about to tackle this pomegranate, but don't cut into it yet because you have to show us whacking it. Whack that pomegranate. And then we're going to slide into some of my favorite things, bean dips, your own pita chips, tortilla chips, hopefully some really gorgeous stuffed cherry tomatoes. And yeah, we're just going to have an awful lot of fun. So, ready? Whack!
Whacking begin.
It's pomegranate season!
Yay! So happy! So you want to look for a nice, good-sized pomegranate, nice and red, and they're just sort of a funny-looking thing. And one of the reasons why I so wanted to do a pomegranate on today's show is because people are very intimidated by pomegranates, and they just don't know what the heck to do with them.
I'm getting better, but I'm going to raise my hand in the intimidation department here. So you just whacked away.
Some whacking around just to sort of loosen up those little seeds in there.
And can you say more about choosing the pomegranate? Because honestly, I mean, I struggle with choosing other pieces of produce, but I kind of sort of have it down pat. Well, it looks like I did okay. Maybe.
You did a great job. Phew. It is tricky with pomegranates because you don't necessarily know what's going to be in there.
Okay.
So sometimes you can get a beautiful looking pomegranate and you cut it open and instead of redness, deep dark red, they're sort of brown.
Brown. Yeah, been there.
Yep. And it's one of the risks that you take when you buy a pomegranate.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Obviously, you can shortcut and you can just buy the little, they don't call them seeds.
Ariels?
Yeah,
something like that.
ARILS. So I'm not sure how to pronounce it. We'll have to look that up. But yeah, they don't call them, so digging out. So I'm going to let you talk about digging out, and I'm going to just get a few things ready over here. So you're just ordering it.
I just cut, and usually, this is a very compact one. Usually you can sort of break into it once it's in half. But if you can't, just cut it a little bit more. And then you just sort of flake these little seeds, these little arils or whatever they are. You just flake them off into a bowl of water. And why the water? Just so that if you get some of this white stuff in there, that will just float to the top. Okay. And then you can just skim that off. You don't have to worry about getting the seeds perfectly clean, like you might get some like this that have this little whiteness on them. That's okay, it's just a little extra fiber. So just flake them all off and you'll get a whole bunch of these little seeds, and what we want is about 1 cup of these seeds. So it does take
It's going
a
to
few
take
minutes
a few, yeah,
to
pull
do
those apart.
this.
So while Donna's still pulling apart the pomegranate, we have done this before. We're going to do it again. We're making our own pita chips and tortilla chips. And so working with, you can choose whatever flavor you want. So I just have a whole wheat tortilla and a whole wheat pita. So kind of sticking with that same theme. And it's so easy. So we've heated up an oven to 425, and I just have my handy kitchen scissors out and just cut this baby into pieces. And I think I can cut 2 at a time to whatever size. And what's nice about working with just a plain, ordinary tortilla or pita chip is then you get to control the other stuff you're putting on. And while you can purchase, you know, tortilla or pita chips, etc., you know, there's a lot of other stuff if you look at the ingredient label, and here you just have this really lovely blank slate to then do with it as you wish. So I'm just going to keep cutting into pieces and then spread them out onto this baking sheet.
It's a particularly good thing to do for anybody that is watching their sodium intake.
Yeah.
Because any of those purchased pita chips, tortilla chips, any of those things are going to be pretty darn salty.
Yeah.
And if you've got a good flavorful salsa, you don't need all the salt on the chips.
Right, and so that's why Donna's working on a really
good,
fabulous,
flavorful salsa.
Flavorful salsa, and we're also going to have some bean dip to go with. So we just break it apart, and you know, recipes will suggest that you could spray these pitas or tortillas with cooking spray or brush with a little olive oil. You don't even have to do that. They can just kind of go in straight up. If you are going to season them though, whether it's, you know, sprinkling them with sesame seeds or cumin or cinnamon, you probably want to add a little something so that that seasoning has something to stick to. So in doing that, you know, cooking spray is one option, which I have, but olive oil becomes a really great one. And so brushing a little bit on is going to be your better bet for controlling how much of this olive oil you're actually using. So when you're brushing, you really can just barely dab a little bit, but it becomes then just enough if you were going to sprinkle or anything on it. And I didn't bring anything to sprinkle or season because we have such amazing dips instead, that's going to work.
The other thing that helps with getting olive oil onto things is, have you ever seen the Misto sprayers, or Pampered Chef makes them?
And I have issues with the nozzle clogging up. So do you have a secret trick to that?
So just after using it, just pump some warm soapy water through the just take the pump off and just clean it some before you use it the next time, and then
that has been my trick, my challenge with those in the past, but I guess I could take on being better about actually cleaning them up. You're still working on pomegranate seeds.
There.
They're beautiful.
I'm 3/4 of the way done.
Yay, team! And I'm gonna throw together a white bean dip, which I think I've done before. So I have a can of cannellini white kidney beans. These have been rinsed and drained, and so they're gonna hop right into this food processor. And then from there, I'm gonna play with a little garlic. So give it a good
One thing that this does not have is garlic in it.
I was looking at the recipe and I was like, seriously, how could that be? But I don't know. With the pomegranate seeds,
garlic and pomegranate would
I was
go
wondering
so
that
much.
too.
Yeah.
They may not necessarily be the best of friends. So there's some other great stuff happening in there. So when you're going to process garlic through a food processor, you don't have to worry about it being super finely chopped because the food processor is going to do that for you. So I'm not worrying about doing a great mincing job here. Get it a little bit more.
So the really cool thing about pomegranates,
Yeah.
other than how wonderful they taste, is how incredibly nutritious they are for us. Loaded with those wonderful phytonutrients.
yeah.
Yep. Those things that fight off all those bad things out there. They're loaded with fiber. Probably something that you want to be careful of if you have a problem with diverticulitis, just because of those little seeds.
Because of those seeds.
So
I'm just grabbing some
notice-
lemon juice here, reaming, and gonna dig out the little lemon seeds.
So notice how all the white stuff just floats up to the top.
It does. We're gonna go
And
back
just
and forth.
skim that off. You can either use a skimmer kind of a thing, or just dig in with your hands.
And while you're playing, I'm just going to take a quick peek at these. They need just a couple more minutes. So to the food processor, just to kind of recap, we've got white cannellini beans in here, a couple of cloves of garlic, a half of a lemon reamed, a couple of tablespoons or so of fresh lemon juice, and then a quarter of a cup of olive oil. And so we're just going to process this up. So easy. I think I'm just going to scrape down the sides because I can see some pieces of garlic floating around.
And again, on this, you don't have to get too fussy about getting all those little white things out.
Getting everything
Just
out.
a little fiber. Sort of like blueberries, getting all those little stems out.
And so, oh, this looks really nice. It's not super thick. This particular one you could add if you want a really thick bean dip. You could add either a few more beans or cut back a little bit on the amount of liquid that was in here. But I'm going to throw this over here because I'm not going to use that. And so I'm just going to transfer this to a red bowl so it's somewhat festive.
Then we are going to cut up an avocado, and it's roughly about one whole pomegranate. It's about 1 cup of pomegranate seeds. I just do a whole, oh, beautiful avocado also.
Yay, team.
Avocados, you just want them to be firm, but a little bit of give to the touch.
Yeah, and I think we've chatted in the past, if your avocados are really firm, paper bag with an apple or a banana. And it really, 24 hours and it'll do the trick. So these look fabulous. I actually got them out in time. Sometimes it's like I miss it. So yeah, these beautiful now firm crackers and tortilla chips. I'm going to add them to my festive little snowman plate here that I've thrown some veggies on. So we have this really nice little veggie and cracker tray. And I can throw a little hummus into Mr. Snowman's face. We're going to bury him a little bit.
The trick to getting a pit
Yes, all right, I'm going to stand.
is just
Boom.
give it a whack.
Oh, you did a little twisty thing though.
And then, so give it a whack and then
a
twist it.
So yeah,
and
so there you go. Megan, if you are watching, that's what we missed before, is we missed the twist when we attempted the whack.
Whack and twist.
Whack and twist. Okay, Megan, there you go.
And then I just
That's
leave
the
it
trick.
right in the skin and cut, and just don't go through the skin and cut your hand. And then you can either use a spoon, or you can use your fingers as you saw me do earlier, or you can use a spatula, however you want to dig that avocado out. Already it's getting pretty.
I know it is, Mr.
And
Snowman
then we're
is
gonna
hiding.
throw some red onion in. And as you can see, I'm not being real fussy about measuring. And then ream the juice of a lime,
Oh, reamer.
a can of black beans
There
that
you
have been rinsed and drained.
And I'm just gonna rinse the food processor parts.
And ream the heck out of that lime and get some of the yummy, tasty pulp as well, and that good fiber. And we're gonna just dump this in, and then we're gonna dice up some cilantro. Now, we also put a jalapeno pepper in, and I really do recommend that you do use a
Okay.
jalapeno because it
Yeah.
really doesn't add, I'm not a spice person. I don't like hot, spicy things, but it adds just the right little bit of a kick to it. I don't have any gloves with me today, though, and I would highly recommend that you do wear gloves whenever you're touching the seeds of a jalapeno pepper. If you don't, and then you touch your eye, or if you try to take your contact lens out several hours later, you will be in such
You will
pain.
not be a happy camper.
And you will never be able to wear that contact lens again. And I have done that, and it's not fun.
So next up, while that's coming together, and it's beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be so yummy.
Smell that fresh cilantro.
We have, we're gonna play with some stuffed cherry tomatoes. And what's kind of fun about this recipe is this is kind of an anything goes. So we've got a collection of cherry tomatoes here that we're gonna just take the little tops off and scoop out the innards. And what you stuff these with is really up to you. If it's summertime, tuna salad might be nice, but for the holidays, I'm thinking that bean dip is gonna go into these cherry tomatoes really, really well. I also brought along some goat cheese that also stuffed and poked down into the middle is also going to be really, really fun. And then before we start diving into these guys, we've have for you guys a recipe for, it's kind of an almost anything goes pesto. So rather than just thinking traditional basil, olive oil, garlic, and pine nuts, this is what do you have in your cupboard? And we all chatting ahead of time, we're like, basil's not looking so good anymore. So WIC code is up there on the screen for families who are participating in the WIC program. Jot that code down, call it into our office, and talk about one of the recipes that you saw, and that will keep your food benefits going for the next 3 months. And I know that we've got families who are watching, which is really great. Shout out to the women in Poultney, because I think that we've got some regular viewers down there. So this pesto, really, whatever you have, whatever looks good is what you can use. So basil looked horrible in the stores, and my basil has long been turned into my own pesto at home. So I've picked up this collection. I've got some parsley here, some cilantro, some arugula. Arugula is a really, really, really nice alternative to working with the basil. Yeah, I think so. Those three things: parsley, cilantro, and arugula. You can choose whatever nut you want to use. So I've got almonds, walnuts, pecans, and pine nuts. And it really can be a little combination. If you don't have any garlic, though I can't imagine a household without garlic, but if that was the case and you want to do something different, a couple of scallions could work instead. So it's really kind of sort of an anything goes. So I don't know, Donna, what should I throw in here? What do you think?
Arugula, arugula.
Arugula, we're voting for arugula.
I love arugula.
Me too. So I'm going to do a cup of arugula, and then I think I'm going to throw in some parsley with that. So the recipe calls for about 1.5 cups of whatever the greens are going to be. And I rinsed out that food processor. So when you're packing in greens or measuring greens, you do want to pack them in. So we've got a cup of arugula.
I don't know if you noticed, but I just was very daring
Did you did cut that so
Did do the jalapeno
You did.
pepper,
And I'm going
and
to do a half a cup of parsley.
I just want to make sure you taste it with the real way. 'Cause
The
it's
real
so
way.
good.
I know, I can't wait. And then a couple of more cloves of garlic. And I'm going to smash them just because it becomes easier to peel them. But again, just coarsely chopped or even sliced to throw into that food processor. And that is the reason for smashing, by the way, is that the skins then just come right off. It's, not necessarily just for like trying to deal with aggression. It's it makes them much easier.
Sort of like beating on the pomegranate.
Exactly, exactly. So we're just going to slice this garlic, toss it in, and then, I don't know, what do we think for nuts? It's a third of a cup here. Should we go with traditional pine nuts or do a little mishmash?
Mishmash.
Mishmash. All right, so we're
A
gonna
little of this, a
it's
little of
about
that.
a third of a cup, so I am just gonna a little bit of this. I've got some almonds. These can be raw or toasted. If you toast them, it's about 5 minutes or so. I regularly do pesto with walnuts. Pine nuts can just be so expensive. So almonds and pecans is kind of a fun combination for me to do something a little new. And we're just gonna chop this up before adding the oil. Let's see how this works. Oh, looking great. So, wow, that came together beautiful. I'm going to give it a little bit more. The almonds, probably sliced almonds would be better. And then we're going to add a little bit of a grated Parmesan cheese, so about a half of a cup. This recipe calls for like an insane amount of oil. I'm just gonna add oil as I go. So I'm gonna start with a cup and then see what that looks like. But I do want this to have a drizzle factor, so it may need to be a little heavier handed than usual with the oil, but somehow that feels like a lot of oil when it says 3 cups. I may have to adjust that for you guys. I know, doesn't it look beautiful? I'm so excited.
Smells delicious.
So how's that? Oh, the salsa's gorgeous.
Isn't it just so pretty? Got the red and the green.
Let's start slicing some little caps off of these cherry tomatoes, and we're about ready to be able to assemble these little guys because this pesto is looking amazing. I need to find myself a spatula. Oh gosh, that looks beautiful. And it's definitely, thin because what we want is a drizzle factor. But yeah, oh gosh, this is beautiful. Oh, I'm so excited to try this. So we're gonna take the little caps off, scoop out some innards.
Maybe.
Maybe using a melon baller or a spoon. And I'm just going to save them aside because, they'd be good to add to soup or something like that. It seems silly to throw something like that away.
Same with the caps.
You might want to use a little, right, I was thinking the caps could go on top. They could be cute on top.
Yes, that's a great idea.
So we have a couple different options for fillings here as we wrap up the show. We want to get these festive little cherry tomatoes going. So we've got bean dip that we can fill these with, or feta cheese, and then drizzle. If you cannot be bothered with dealing with cherry tomatoes, or if they're hard to find, you could also, we brought in some peppers, we're not going to get to them. You could go ahead and cut them into square pieces and build a little pile on top. But there we go, bean dip into this cherry tomato. Let's mix up the colors, and I'm just going to reach in here for a spoon. And drizzle. drizzle a little green pesto on top. Ooh, how pretty. We are gonna take a little time to assemble these and then show you the finished product once we're actually done. So, it's festive! It's festive, I'm so excited we did it.
There's a cute little green one.
They are, oh my gosh, a great little green one to add some white to. You could also do some feta cheese and drizzle with that pesto. It's going to be gorgeous. So happy, healthy holidays. I hope you're inspired to bring something new to some of your family, friend, or colleague kinds of gatherings. We'll see you in the new year. Yvonne Bruneau is coming back. We talked a little bit about ginger when we were doing up sweet potatoes for November, and we're going to be all about ginger because it'll be really cold and we're going to need really warm things. So thank you all. Happy holidays, almost happy new year, and we're just going to build out the rest of these appetizers and have our own little party here. So we'll see you next month. Oh, this looks yummy.